Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Chapter 6, Pig and Pepper. For a minute or two she stood looking at the house and wondered what to do next, when suddenly a footman in a livery came out running out of the wood. She considered him to be a footman because he was in a livery, otherwise, judging by his face only, she would have called him a fish, and rapped loudly at the door with his knuckles. It was opened by another footman in livery, with a round face and large eyes like a frog, and both footmen, Alice noticed, had powdered hair that curled over their heads. She felt very curious to know what was about, and crept a little way out of the woods to listen. The fish footman began by producing from under his arm a great letter nearly as large as himself, and this he handed over to the other, saying in a solemn tone, "For the Duchess, an invitation from the Queen to play croquet." The frog footman replied in the same solemn tone, only changing the order of the words of him. "From the Queen, an invitation for the Duchess to play croquet." They then both bowed, and their curls got entangled with each other. Alice laughed at this so much that she had to run back into the woods for fear of hearing her, and when she next peeked out, the fish footman was gone, and the other was sitting on the ground near the door, staring stupidly up into the air. Alice went timidly up to the door and knocked. "There's no use in knocking," said the footman, "and that for two reasons. Firstly, I'm on the same side of the door as you. Secondly, because they're making such a noise inside, no one could possibly hear you." And there was a most extraordinary noise going from within, a constant howling and sneezing, and every now and again a great crash as if a dish or a kettle had broken into pieces. "Please then," said Alice, "how do I get in?" "There might be some sense in your knocking," said the footman, went on without attending to her, if we had the door between us. For instance, if you were inside, you might knock and I could let you in, you know." He was looking up into the sky at the time he was speaking, and this Alice thought decidedly uncivil. "But perhaps he can't help it," she said to herself. "His eyes are so very nearly at the top of his head, but at any rate he might answer questions." "How am I to get in?" she repeated aloud. "I sit here," the footman remarked, "till tomorrow." At this moment the door of the house opened, and a large plate came skimming out, straight over the footman's head. It just grazed his nose and broke into pieces against one of the trees behind him. "Or next day, maybe," the footman continued in the same tone, exactly if nothing had happened. "How am I to get in?" asked Alice in a louder tone. "Are you to get in at all?" said the footman. "That's the first question, you know." It was no doubt. Only Alice didn't like to be told so. "It's rather dreadful," she muttered to herself, "the way all these creatures argue. It's enough to drive one crazy." The footman said it's a good opportunity for repeating his own remark with variations. "I shall sit here," he said, "on and off for days and days." "But what am I to do?" said Alice. "Anything you like," said the footman, and began to whistle. "Oh, there's no use talking to him," said Alice desperately. "He's perfectly idiotic." And she opened the door and went inside. The door led right into a large kitchen, which was full of smoke from one end to the other. The Duchess was sitting on a three-legged stool in the middle, nursing a baby. The cook was leaning over the fire, stirring a large cauldron, which seemed to be full of soup. "There's certainly too much pepper in that soup," Alice said to herself, as well as she could for sneezing. There certainly was too much of it in the air. Even the dustman sneezed occasionally. Achoo! And instead of beating, it was sneezing and howling alternatively with a moment's pause. The only things in the kitchen that did not sneeze were the cook and the large cat which was sitting on the hearth and grinning from ear to ear. "Please would you tell me," said Alice, a little timidly, because she was not quite sure whether it was good manners for her to speak first, "why your cat grins like that?" "It's a Cheshire cat," said the Duchess, "and that's why. Pig!" She said the last word with such violence that Alice quite jumped, but she saw in a moment it was addressed to the baby and not to her, so she took courage and went again. "I don't know that Cheshire cats always grinned. In fact, I don't know a cat's could grin." "They all can," said the Duchess, "and most of them do." "I don't know any that can do that," said Alice very politely, feeling pleased to have got into a conversation. "You don't know much," said the Duchess, "and that's a fact." Alice didn't like the tone of this remark, and thought it might as well to induce some other subject of conversation. Whilst she was trying to fix on one, the cook took the cauldron of soup off the fire, and at once set to work to throw everything within reach of the Duchess and the baby. The fire irons came first, then followed by a shower of saucepans, plates, and dishes. The Duchess took no notice of them even when they hit her. The baby was howling so much already it was quite impossible to say whether the blows hurt her or not. "Oh, please, mind what you're doing," cried Alice, jumping up and down in agony of terror. "Oh, there goes his precious nose," as the unusually large saucepan flew close and nearly carried it off. "If everyone minded their own business," said the Duchess in a hoarse growl, "the world would go much deal faster than it does." "Which would not be an advantage," said Alice, who felt glad of an opportunity to something of a knowledge. "Just think of the work it would make with light and night, day and night. Why, you see, the Earth takes 24 hours to turn round on its axis. Talking of axis, chop off her head." Alice glanced around rather anxiously at the cook to see if she meant to take the hint, but the cook was busily stirring the soup and seemed not to be listening, so she went on again. 24 hours, I think, or is it 12? Oh, don't bother me. I never could abide figures. And with that, she began nursing her child again, singing what sort of lullabies she did, and giving a violent shake at the end of every line. "Speak roughly to you, little boy, and beat him when he sneezes, but only when he annoys, because he knows he teases." In which the cook and the baby joined. "Whoa, whoa, whoa." While the Duchess sang the second verse, she kept tossing the baby violently up and down, and the poor thing howled so much that Alice could hardly hear the words. "I speak to him too severely, my boy. I beat him when he sneezes, for although he can enjoy the pepper when he pleases." And the chorus came, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." "Here, you may nurse it a bit if you like," the Duchess said to Alice, flinging the baby as she spoke. "I must go and get ready to play croquet with the Queen," and she hurried off out of the room. The cook threw a flying pan after her as she went, but it just missed her. Alice caught the baby some difficulty. It was a queer-shaped creature, and held it on its arms and legs in all directions. "Just like a starfish," thought Alice. The poor thing was snorting like a steam engine when she caught it, and it kept tumbling itself and straightening itself out again, so that altogether, for the first minute or two, it was as much as she could do to hold on to it. As soon as she found out the proper way of nursing it, which was to twist it in some sort of knot and keep it tight on its right ear and its left foot, as if to prevent itself from undoing itself, she carried it into the open air. "If I can't take this child away from me, If I don't take this child away with me, they're sure to kill us in a day or two. We'd be murdered to leave it behind." She said the last word out loud, and then the little thing grunted in reply. It had a left of sneezing by this point. "Don't grunt," said Alice. "That's not a proper way to express yourself." The baby grunted again. And Alice looked very anxiously to its face to see what the matter was. There could be no doubt it had a very turn-up nose, sort of more like a snout than a real nose. And also, its eyes were extremely small for a baby, although Alice did not like the look of the thing at all. Perhaps it was only sobbing, she thought, and looked into its eyes again to see if there were any tears. And there were no tears. "If you were going to turn into a pig, my dear," said Alice seriously, "I'll have nothing more to do with you. Mind now." The poor thing sobbed again, or grunted. It was possible to say which, and they went on for a while in some silence. Alice was just beginning to think to herself, "Now, what am I to do with this creature when I get home?" When it grunted again so violently, she took Lynx's face into some alarm. This time there was no mistake about it. It was neither more or less than a pig, and she felt quite absurd for carrying it any further. So she set the creature down and felt quite relieved to see it trot away into the wood. "If it can grow up," she said, "it would have made a dreadfully ugly child, but it makes a rather handsome pig, I think." And she began thinking over the children she knew, who might very well do very well as pigs, and was just saying to herself, if only one knew the right way to change them, when she was a little startled by seeing the Cheshire Cat sitting on a bough of a tree a few yards away. And the cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought, though it still had very long claws and a great many teeth. She thought she should treat it with a bit of respect. "Cheshire Puss," she began rather timidly, and she didn't know whether it would like the name. However, only grinned a little wider. It's pleased so far," thought Alice, and she went on. "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" That depends on a great deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. I don't care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat. As long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. Oh, you're sure to do that, said the cat, if only you walk long enough. Alice felt that this couldn't be denied, so tried another question. What sort of people live about here? In that direction, said the cat said, waving its right paw around, lives the Hatter, and in that direction, waving the other paw, lives the March Hare. Visit either if you like, they're both mad. But I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Well, you can't help that, said the cat. We're all mad here. I'm mad and you're mad. How do you know I'm mad? Said Alice. You must be, said the cat. You wouldn't have come here. Alice didn't think that proved it at all. However, she went on. And how do you know you're mad, to begin with? Said the cat. A dog's not mad. You grant that? I suppose, said Alice. Well then, the cat went on. You see, a dog growls when it's angry and wags its tail when it's pleased. Now I growl when I'm pleased, and I wag my tail when I'm angry. Therefore I'm mad. I call it purring, not growling, said Alice. Probably what you like, said the cat. Did you play crocheting with the Queen today? I should like it very much, said Alice, but I haven't been invited yet. You'll see me there, said the cat, and vanished. Alice was not surprised by this. She was getting so used to queer things happening. While she was looking about at the place where it had been, it suddenly appeared again. By the by, what became of the baby? Said the cat. I forget to ask. It turned into a pig, Alice quietly said, as if it came about in a very natural way. I thought it would, said the cat, and vanished again. Alice waited a little while, half expecting to see it again, but it did not appear, and after a minute or two, she walked in the direction on which the March Hare was said to live. I've seen hatters before, she said to herself. March Hare will be much the most interesting. And perhaps, as this is May, he won't be raving mad. At least, not so mad as it was in March. As she said this, she looked up again, and there was the cat again, sitting on the branch of a tree. Did you say pig or fig? Said the cat. I said pig, replied Alice. And I wish you wouldn't keep appearing and vanishing so quickly. You're making me one quite gritty. All right, said the cat. And this time it vanished slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with a grin, which remained some time after it had gone. Well, I've often seen a cat without a grin, thought Alice. But a grin without a cat, that's the most curious thing I've ever seen in my life. She had not gone much further before she came inside of the house of the March Hare. She thought it must be the right house because the chimneys were shaped like ears, and the thatch was fur. It was such a large house that she did not like to go near till she had nibbled some of the left-hand bit of the mushroom, which she still had, and raised herself about 2 feet. Even then, she walked up to us quite timidly, saying to herself, suppose it should be raving mad after all. I almost wish I'd gone to see the Hatter instead.